Karoline Leavitt walked into the studio like she owned the airwaves. Hair flawless, voice loud, energy dialed all the way up. She wasn't there to debate, she came to dominate. And for the first 10 minutes, that's exactly what she did. She talked over the moderator. She lobbed clever jabs disguised as policy. She smiled, but not the kind of smile meant to be kind. The cameras loved her. So did the noise. Across the table, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat perfectly still. No smirks. No side comments. Just calm. Measured. Quiet. She wasn't playing Karoline's game. She was setting the stage for her own. And it began with one question. "Congresswoman Crockett," the moderator asked, "do you have a response to that?" Jasmine looked up straight into the camera, then slowly turned to Karoline. Her voice was steady, controlled, like someone who already knew how this would end. "Sure," Jasmine said. "But before I respond to her opinion, let's talk about the real reason she's so loud about mine." The room froze. The moderator blinked. Karoline's smirk twitched. Even the control room producer later admitted. They felt it in their chest. Something was coming. Jasmine reached down and opened a plain navy folder. No theatrics. No announcement. She pulled out a single sheet of paper, held it up just high enough for the cameras, then slid it across the desk. "This," she said, "is a memo from her campaign team. Dated, verified, circulated 2 weeks ago." Karoline's lips parted, then snapped shut. She knew. Jasmine continued, calm and deliberate. "The strategy isn't about policy. It's about people like me, black women in Congress." She paused, then read aloud. "Paint them as aggressive. Push until they snap. Then call them emotional. Silence. Not the awkward kind. The kind that shifts the air. The kind that makes you lean in." Karoline didn't respond. Not right away. She just stared at the paper, like it might say something different if she looked long enough. But the words didn't change. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't gesture. She didn't gloat. She just sat there, still, calm, unshaken, and let the silence stretch. "This isn't speculation," Jasmine said, tapping the corner of the memo. "It's signed by 2 senior members of her media team." The moderator leaned in, reading the bolded line at the top. "Objective. Reframe public perception by triggering emotional responses. Focus on tone, not substance. Highlight aggression. Undermine professionalism without direct confrontation." Jasmine's voice stayed firm. "It doesn't just mention me," she said. "It names 2 other women in Congress. Both women of color. Both labeled, and I quote, easy to provoke. Difficult to redirect." Silence again. The kind that comes right before something breaks. Across the table, Karoline's composure cracked. Not all at once. Just a flicker in her jaw, a shift in her breath, that quiet panic in the eyes of someone who thought they controlled the room. "That's a lie," Karoline snapped. "You're twisting this. That document is fake." Jasmine didn't blink. "I didn't create it," she said, holding her gaze. "Someone on your team sent it to me. Anonymously. I waited. I verified. And now I'm asking a question."
When we call someone emotional for defending themselves, but stay silent when others shout over them, who benefits from that? No one answered, because they all knew. Across the studio, Karoline Leavitt was visibly shaken. The same hands that once gestured confidently were now clenched on the table. She glanced off camera, then back, searching for an exit in a room that suddenly felt too small. "You set me up," she hissed, voice cracking. "You knew exactly what this would do." Jasmine didn't blink. "I knew what the truth would do," she replied. "And if hearing it makes you uncomfortable, maybe ask yourself why it was written in the first place." The moderator looked stunned. One of the producers signaled to cut to commercial, but no one moved fast enough. Because what had just happened wasn't planned. It wasn't a headline. It was a moment. The kind that doesn't scream, but still shakes the floor beneath your feet. And as Karoline sat frozen, mic still live, Jasmine leaned back, just slightly. She hadn't just brought receipts. She brought the blueprint. And the whole country had just watched her unfold it, calmly, clearly, and with devastating precision. You ever witness something so raw, so unfiltered? It slows time? That was this moment. Not because someone yelled, not because of fireworks or insults, but because one woman, composed and surgical, slid a truth across a desk, and her opponent unraveled before the cameras could even blink. But what happened after the cameras cut? That's the part no one was ready for. It began with just 14 seconds, 14 uncut seconds of behind-the-scenes footage that slipped out of the control room and hit the internet like lightning. In it, Karoline Leavitt, once the media-trained golden girl, ripped off her mic, pacing in tight circles, face flushed with fury. She wasn't yelling at Jasmine anymore. She was yelling at the crew. "She set me up," Karoline snapped. She knew I couldn't defend that without looking guilty. Then came the line that broke the internet. "This always happens when you let them talk too long." One word, like striking a match over dry grass. By the time the show came back from commercial, the real fire was already raging. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Crockett called it, hashtag say it with silence, hashtag the memo is real on Twitter, side-by-side images of Jasmine's calm stare and Karoline's unraveling face flooded timelines. On TikTok, reaction videos surged, viewers replaying the exact moment Jasmine slid the memo across the table, eyes locked, lips barely moving, like a chess master delivering checkmate. Then came the breakdowns. Former campaign staffers, PR experts, legal analysts, all saying the same thing. This wasn't a takedown. This was a reckoning. And it wasn't the document that truly shocked people, it was how Jasmine delivered it. No grandstanding. No moral posturing. Just calm, razor-sharp control. The kind of restraint that had been demanded of women, especially Black women, for decades. In politics, in media, in boardrooms. Now it was being weaponized back. Not through chaos, but through composure. By 10 a.m., the moment had gone fully viral. Cable news picked it up. Podcasts couldn't stop replaying the clip. Even morning radio in Cleveland led with the headline, "Did Jasmine Crockett just redefine political debate?" But beneath the hashtags and headlines, something deeper had shifted. For once, the nation wasn't just talking about what was said. They were talking about how it was revealed. And the mirror Jasmine held up? It wasn't just for Karoline. It was for everyone who ever mistook confidence for arrogance, who confused silence with weakness, who whispered too emotional instead of asking why someone had to fight so hard to be heard. This wasn't just a viral moment. This was the beginning of something much, much louder. And Jasmine? She didn't say another word. She didn't have to. 5 days before the broadcast, Jasmine Crockett was nowhere near a studio. She sat in a quiet cafe in Des Moines, Iowa, black coffee, no entourage, just a laptop and a heavy stillness in the air. Then the email arrived. No subject line, no message body, just an attachment. Draft_messaging_mimo_internal. PDF, she didn't open it right away. You don't survive in politics by clicking every anonymous message. But something about it lingered. That night, she forwarded it to a trusted contact. The reply came the next morning. "It's real." Jasmine read it once. Then again. Then again. It wasn't just a memo. It was a playbook on how to discredit her without ever addressing her ideas. If she responds quickly, call it emotional. If she pauses, call it rehearsed. Push her until she snaps. Then call her unprofessional. Jasmine didn't rage. She didn't tweet. She didn't run to a mic. She printed the memo, placed it in a plain navy folder, and slid it into her work bag. Because she wasn't preparing for a fight. She was preparing for timing. Not to confront, but to reveal. Not to go viral, but to disarm the playbook in real time. When the Thursday panel was confirmed, Jasmine didn't alert her team. She just whispered 2 words to herself. Game time. While Karoline's team scrambled, drafting press statements, calling in damage control, even floating rumors the memo was fake, Jasmine didn't say a word. No cable news tour. No trending tweet. No victory lap. Instead, She stood at a small community center in Shreveport, Louisiana. No teleprompter, just a folding chair and a handheld mic. It wasn't a national press event. It wasn't supposed to be, and yet every major outlet picked it up. Jasmine spoke slowly, without notes. I didn't bring that document out to embarrass anyone. I brought it out because we've let too many things slide for too long. We've laughed off disrespect. We've stayed silent to keep things civil. And we've paid the price for that silence. A breeze moved through the crowd. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to fight dirty to speak truth. And you don't have to let people define you just because they can't outthink you. The clip lasted barely 2 minutes, but it echoed for days. Commentators called it the quietest mic drop in political memory. 3 days later, while headlines still swirled, a local reporter in Toledo did something national media didn't. She followed the leak. Her search led to a name. Dana Haskins, 27 years old. Junior communications assistant on Karoline Leavitt's campaign. Dana hadn't spoken to anyone. No tweets. No interviews. Nothing. But when the reporter called, Dana answered on the first ring. Her voice was soft, but steady. I couldn't sit on it, she said. I watched what they were planning in real time. She described internal strategy calls, where staff mocked elected women, dissected their tone, joked about baiting Crockett until she broke. It stopped sounding like politics. It started sounding like a setup. Dana saved the memo. She reread it for days. Then, when she saw Jasmine on the panel schedule, she sent it. She didn't know if Jasmine would use it. She just hoped someone finally would. These tactics weren't accidental, Dana said. They were designed to discredit women who already have to work twice as hard to be heard. When Jasmine's team heard about the interview, there was no press release. No spotlight. Just one private message. Thank you for having the courage we're so often told to suppress. That night, Dana sat alone in her apartment, watching the clip of Jasmine's takedown on loop. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt relieved. Because for once, the game wasn't just exposed. It was interrupted. And someone somewhere had finally said, "This is not okay." She stood in front of a modest community center in Shreveport, Louisiana. No podium, no teleprompter. Just a handheld mic and a scattering of folding chairs on sun-baked, cracked pavement. This wasn't a national press conference. It wasn't meant to be. And yet, every major outlet picked it up. Jasmine spoke slowly, without notes. I didn't bring that document out to embarrass anyone, she said. I brought it out because we've let too many things slide for too long. A breeze swept through the crowd. We've laughed off disrespect. We've stayed silent to keep things civil. And we've paid the price for that silence. She paused, then locked eyes with the camera unblinking. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to fight dirty to speak the truth. And you don't have to let people define you just because they can't outthink you. The clip barely lasted 2 minutes, but it echoed for days. Commentators called it the quietest mic drop in political memory. Former campaign staffers began whispering about similar memos. And ordinary people? They finally had the language for something they'd felt their entire lives. This wasn't silence. This was precision. And in that stillness, Jasmine was louder than ever. 3 days after the broadcast, as headlines continued to swirl and think pieces poured in, a local reporter in Toledo made a move the national media didn't. She didn't chase the noise. She followed the leak. Her search led to a name. Dana Haskins. 27 years old. First political job. Junior communications assistant on Karoline Leavitt's campaign. Dana hadn't spoken to anyone since the memo surfaced. Not to the press, not online, not even anonymously. She had deleted her Twitter, turned off her phone. But when the reporter called, Dana answered on the first ring. Her voice was soft but steady. I couldn't sit on it, she said. I watched what they were planning in real time. She described the strategy calls, where staff mocked elected women, dissected their tone instead of their policies, laughed about pushing buttons or baiting Crockett until she cracked. It stopped sounding like politics, Dana admitted. It started sounding like a setup. She saved the memo, reread it for days, waited until she saw Crockett's name on the panel schedule. Then she sent it. She didn't know if Jasmine would use it. She just hoped someone finally would. I wanted people to understand this wasn't accidental. These tactics were deliberate. They were designed to discredit women who already have to work twice as hard to be heard. When Jasmine's team found out about the interview, there was no press conference, no viral thread, no grandstanding, just a private message. Thank you for having the courage we're so often told to suppress. That night,